Welcome to the Commission for Gender Equality. In this video, we will learn about the Commission, its mandate, and hear from its leadership, management, and officials on the work of the Commission through its 9 offices around the country. First, we hear from Ms. Tamara Matebula, Chairperson of the Commission for Gender Equality.
The Commission for Gender Equality is an independent statutory body created in terms of Section 187 of the Constitution under Chapter 9 of the Constitution of the Republic of South Africa. The Commission has a unique mandate to promote respect for, protection, development as well as attainment of gender equality in South Africa. In terms of Section 11 of the CGE Act, the constitutional mandate of the Commission for Gender Equality is amplified, and it obliges the Commission for Gender Equality to monitor and evaluate policies, practices, as well as develop and conduct and manage information, education, as well as programs that are aimed to educate the public. The Act further gives the powers to the Commission for Gender Equality to investigate any gender-related matter and monitor compliance with regional and international treaties and conventions as we have, and we are signatories to these. The Act further gives the Commission for Gender Equality powers to conduct research or make research happen to further the object of the Commission for Gender Equality. And the Commission for Gender Equality reports to Parliament and to the President on an annual basis and quarterly basis. The Commission for Gender Equality has a critical catalytic role in the gender space in South Africa and beyond the borders of South Africa, because we do have a mandate to make sure that we monitor compliance at the regional as well as international level. So that catalytic role is a role that we continuously apply in South Africa by monitoring gender transformation in public, in private, as well as civil society organizations. We monitor their compliance in terms of transformation, be it in the workplace or outside workplace. But recently, the Commission for Gender Equality has done quite substantive work in terms of making sure that we look at our government partners, various departments at national level, at provincial level for gender transformation, and look at issues that actually come out of those transformation hearings that we will hold normally every year. So one of the things that we have done was to actually compile the transformation reports, which are available in our websites. And those reports contain quite substantive recommendations that we continue to monitor in the gender space, just to monitor transformation. We have done that even with private sector companies, privately owned companies as well, just to make sure that they are also doing their work, which is gender sensitive, not only gender sensitive, but also in accommodating persons with disabilities and persons or communities, members of LGBTI communities in the workplace, in schools, in institutions of higher learning, and this work is one of the work that is a highlight for us. We have done quite a lot in terms of making sure that we do research and we make research happen, and that research work is research work that is informed by our research agenda, looking at issues that are currently impeding achievement of gender equality in South Africa, but also abroad. We have shared our research reports with Parliament, with communities, and we have run workshops following those research reports that we have developed. And I must also say that we have shared even at international arenas when we have conferences like the CSW in New York. We do share our work. Lastly, I want to say that we have done quite a lot in terms of making sure that We run projects that are beginning to look at gender mainstreaming, looking at or encompassing the Sustainable Development Goals, particularly goal number 5, which looks at promoting gender equality, SDG 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 that are beginning to address poverty, education, addressing hunger in South Africa, because we still do have pockets of hunger areas in South Africa. Lastly, I think what has been more interesting recently in terms of our work was to make sure that the commissioners are engaged in terms of making sure that they engage certain aspects where we feel that gender equality is not achieved. Particularly lately, we've been working with the South African Police Services. We have done work with the Tutuzela care centers, the centers that are accommodating victims or survivors of gender-based violence in the country, and we have been monitoring how these institutions are beginning to address gender equality, and we can already see gaps, and we are engaging ministers and relevant high-level meetings that we have had recently in terms of addressing those issues.
Gender equality is a broad space, and the Commission ensures that it splits its programs and activities to give attention to all spheres of gender equality, gender discrimination, and other gender-related matters such as gender-based violence. As Commissioner, Lindiwe Ntuli Tlobatla explains.
We have a diverse range of root causes of gender-based violence. Some people call it the triggers of gender-based violence or the causal factors of gender-based violence. They range from inequalities that continue to exist in our societies. Also, issues of poverty is one of the causal factors. Issues of unemployment and issues of underemployment of women in particular. It's some of those causal factors of gender-based violence, where at times you find a woman staying in an abusive relationship, not that she's happy, not that she's not aware that she's in an abusive relationship, but because there are issues of the stomach, the economic issues, issues of survival, then they stay in such relationships. But also our worst enemy when it comes to root causes of gender-based violence is the issue of masculinity, the issues of power relations, the issues of patriarchy, male dominance, all those particular things. And then issues of urban crime also are some of the root causes or the triggers of gender-based violence, and not to mention substance abuse, like alcohol abuse, like drug abuse. When people are under the influence, sometimes they become bold enough to commit crimes like rape or contact crimes and so on. So it differs from one area to another. For starters, remember we are a Commission for Gender Equality. Our constitutional mandate is to promote respect for gender equality, and we also believe in the total attainment of gender equality. And when you check, for an example, the 12 critical areas of concern and the work that we do as a commission, gender-based violence is part of what we do. And as a commission, again, we don't believe in issues where women feel like slaves or women feel like crime scenes in their own country, where the safety of women is being challenged. That is a gross matter for concern for us as the Commission for Gender Equality. So we are committed and we take seriously issue of gender-based violence and femicide. And when you look across the 9 provinces in South Africa, you listen to the news, the radio, on the media, basically. A day doesn't pass where you come across issues, either it's gender-based violence or it's femicide. So it's a very crucial, very important matter, one we are committed to as the Commission for Gender Equality. Part of our work that we do as the Commission for Gender Equality, we do oversight visits at different police stations in the 9 provinces. When we arrive at each police station, we have a tool that we use, which is very broad, but at the end of the day, it produces the desired results. We check, for an example, that how many SAPS members are trained on gender-based violence, how many are trained on domestic violence, and we also check in a period of a month, for an example, how many cases of gender-based violence and femicide are they receiving as an individual police stations? Are they having, when we look at the criminal justice system, for an example, are they having acquittals and so on? But you go further as the Commission for Gender Equality, where we check whether each police station has a victim empowerment program, because it's very critical. Remember, it's mandatory to say when a victim arrives at the police station, there must be the issue of privacy, the issue of confidentiality. So the victim empowerment program, the rooms themselves are very critical in making sure that the survivors and the victims of gender-based violence receive the support, the help, and the privacy that they deserve.
The CGE is led by commissioners who constitute its governing body. They ensure that the organization discharges its responsibilities in relation to strategic direction, policy approval, oversight, and accountability in order to achieve good performance, effective control, legitimacy with stakeholders, and sustain an ethical corporate culture. Chief Executive Officer Jamela Robertson gives us a picture of how the administration of the organization functions.
As we all know, the Commission for Gender Equality was established in 1996 in terms of Chapter 9 of the Constitution. Hence, we are called Chapter 9 institutions. Why were we established? And I'm now speaking about all the Chapter 9s in the country. As we have fought for democracy in this country, one of the things that we're fighting for was equal human rights, equal access to resources and opportunities in the country. And we know that historically there were groups of peoples who were left behind, not only socio-economically on the basis of race, gender, sexual orientation, all the groups of our societies that we call designated groups. These are the groups that the system of apartheid, and even before apartheid, the system of discriminating people on the basis of their biological makeup had been embedded in our society. So when we achieved democracy in 1994, these were some of the factors or the key element of transformation in our country. Hence, Chapter 9 institutions were established to focus basically on that, so that we try to redress the past, to make sure that we don't leave anyone behind in our society socio-economically. The Commission for Gender Equality was established to focus mainly on gender equality, because we know as people were left behind socio-economically, they were also left in terms of race, they were also left behind in terms of gender. If you look at the statistics today in the country, you will find that black women are at the bottom of everyone in terms of equality or equal access to resources and opportunities. So as the Commission for Gender Equality, we are mainly tasked to redress. And as we do that, we have learned lessons in the past 25 years in terms of implementing our mandate and making a difference in the country that is having an impact in terms of how we implement our mandate. I must say, we have made an impact. We have contributed a lot in the changes of law, changes in terms of certain patriarchal values that are harmful to women and other discriminated groups. We have, through our work, contributed a lot to the transformation that we have achieved in South Africa today. As the Commission, we have actually looked at our strategy, and we have consulted internally and externally being advised by our sister institutions and other entities that oversee our work to redirect our strategy so that we have better impact. They say there is always room for improvement, and that is why we are refocusing our strategy. We have that included in our annual performance plan for this year, which is 2022-2023, and we want to now focus on what we are doing, what we need to improve. We're looking at our past weaknesses and strength. We want to build on the strength and improve on the weaknesses that we have identified ourselves through the project, through the report that some of you will be familiar with, which we called the 20-year review of the Commission for Gender Equality. It has shown us lessons that have informed our refocus strategically as we move forward as the Commission for Gender Equality. So now we want to be able to measure the impact that we are going to make and be able to report impact instead of reporting how many activities or initiatives we have implemented. We want to report the so what part of that. So we have implemented these activities. How have they impacted in the country as envisaged by the Constitution when we were established as a Chapter 9 institution? So at this stage, what we are saying is we're going to look at our strategic partners and ensure that we work with the relevant strategic partners to make sure we make measurable input in terms of how we are really implementing our mandate. In conclusion, because I have spoken about our strategic redirection or refocus as per the lessons we learned in the past 25 years. So our vision, although it remains the same, the emphasis that our vision is a society from all forms of gender inequality is going to be operationalized through our mission to promote, protect, monitor, and evaluate gender equality through research initiatives, public education, policy development, legislative initiative, and effective monitoring and litigation. Having articulated our vision and mission, one of the elements of our mandate that we wanted to emphasize was to create a brand promise to South Africans, so that when all is said and done, when we measure our impact, we need to be able to say we were relevant to our brand promise, which is to safeguard gender equality in South Africa. So when we measure our impact, we need to show or demonstrate how we have safeguarded gender equality in the country as we have made this promise to South Africans.
The Commission monitors the general gender space in the country, including how government institutions enforce relevant laws that seek to protect the people of South Africa. Ensuring equality for the LGBTQI community is one of the programs the Commission is implementing.
Part of my work is ensuring that the CGE understands that gender equality includes protecting the rights of sexual and gender minorities in South Africa, and ensuring that our mandate of fostering gender equality as an institution tasked with fostering democracy through ensuring and protecting gender equality includes and does not leave behind LGBTI people. Some of the programs that fall under some of the work that I do includes ensuring that I speak to different stakeholders on various issues, and these issues have included intersex genital mutilation, ensuring that the Department of Education includes trans and gender non-conforming students in its uniform school guidelines, ensuring that the work of ensuring equality, particularly within the CGE, and understanding gender equality within the CGE includes a recognition that LGBTI people are marginalized due to their gender or as a result of their gender and their gender expression. Some of the work that we do as the CGE includes reaching out to various stakeholders and asking them to make submissions on what gender equality means and how does it look like when we include LGBTI persons. Some of that work is in the form of the hashtag LGBTI equality call to action, where we asked civil society and various people, communities to make submissions on what gender equality means as it relates to the LGBTI community and what areas of concern in the law continue to require legislative reform or interventions by the CGE. Other work that the CGE does is intersex genital mutilation, which seeks to investigate and look into how intersex children's rights continue to be violated within the healthcare system, and how can we ensure as the CGE that we develop and continue to develop programmatic work in making sure that those violations are those who violate intersex children within the healthcare space are held accountable. Other work that we do is to look into the discrimination of LGBTI students based on their gender expression and sexual orientation within the education field. One form this has taken is through us addressing the school uniform guidelines and making sure that we call out and ask for a non-discrimination framework to be included in the existing draft uniform guidelines of the Department of Education.
In 2021, the Commission for Gender Equality hosted a series of webinars, including one on women's economic empowerment and financial exclusion. The economic dispensation of women is one of the issues the Commission has spoken about many times. Deputy Chairperson Dr. Ntabiseng Moleko addresses the issue of women economic empowerment and women inclusion in leadership.
What we've seen in the country is various legislation that has been established to try and address not just racial economic imbalances, but also gender imbalances. One of the legislation that has been put in place is broad-based Black economic empowerment. This is primarily to increase control, ownership and management of both enterprises and productive assets by Black Africans to deal with access inequality that we've seen historically. Where are we now? So what we've seen now is that we still have a glaringly wide wage gap between women and men. What we've seen in terms of income inequality is that this is particularly accentuated with Black African females. For an example, Statistics South Africa releases income data on median income. Black women earn 2,500 Rand in terms of median income. Black men are at 3,250. When you then look at white men and white women, they're more than 3 to 4 times what Black women are earning at 10,000 Rand and the white men at 13,000 Rand at a median income level. There's still unequal access to factors of production when we talk about land, and we also talk about capital. Capital, we can talk about financial inclusion and see that, yes, we may see increasing proportions of our women accessing bank accounts and being able to transact and save, but that doesn't necessarily translate to access to credit, access to finance to the level we want it to be. And I think that these are some of the issues we need to deal with. When you look at the global WEF, the World Economic Forum Global Gender Report, South Africa currently ranks 19 out of 149 countries in terms of gender and gender equality. But if you zoom in into the specific indices, we begin to see that South Africa when you look at income inequality, South Africa is at 119. It drops to the bottom ranking participants, or rather the 117th position. And what we then can see is that women typically have no economic power, economic access, and they plunge to the bottom. And I think these are some of the issues that we still have post-democracy, which we definitely need to resolve and deal with. I believe that women's empowerment cannot be discussed as a homogenous issue. We have seen, again, research is showing us, particularly from Statistics South Africa, that repeatedly race and gender are determinants to the extent of poverty, the level of unemployment, and inequality in South Africa. If I just expand on the unemployment issues, we've seen that unemployment in women has always been at least 5 to 6% higher than men since the labor force survey started collecting data. We've also seen it being worse now, where it's more than 46% for women vis-a-vis men. And this shows you that inequality definitely has a face of a woman, and a black woman at that. Access to economic opportunities definitely need to be targeted. Access to finance. I think employment initiatives have to have a targeted approach so that those who are worst affected by the triple Ps are actually enabled to participate in access. So I think that targeted interventions in rural areas, in our townships, in areas where there's economic exclusion, particularly targeting those who are economically disempowered, will help us in terms of reducing the labor market biases that we see, hence the results that we see. They'll help us increase the proportion of women that are accessing. Particularly if you look at state procurement, there is a target by the president and the national government of 40% in terms of access to procurement opportunities for SMMEs, and these are targeted for women. We haven't reached that level. In our different reports, we've seen that the different departments are nowhere near that, and I think the CGE's role is to constantly monitor those enterprise development programs, monitor the state procurement, the program of state procurement, ensure that the gender budgeting and mainstreaming targets of that gender budget responsive framework is actually implemented. So I think that we've got to understand that the issue of women's empowerment is closely linked to the national development agenda. If you have the majority of your population not participating in the economy, that's going to affect your national development agenda. So when this does occur, we'll actually see everyone lifted up, and more women and the proportion of women actually accessing opportunities and being empowered. It will have a general benefit to all in our society. So I think that without a doubt, the Commission for Gender Equality can definitely do a lot of work in terms of monitoring, in terms of assessing, improvements from the public and the private and all institutions across the nation and the national spectrum. But I think without a doubt, the burden of responsibility should not lie on the shoulders of the oppressed. I think that we often have less decision-making power and influence, but it should not be women who are responsible single-handedly for fighting injustices around gender equality. The issues of gender wage gap, the issues of sexual harassment, and the issue around women in leadership and the proportion of women in leadership in both companies and in the public sector. So I think that it is definitely men who need to take up the burden as well. And we're seeing that really the holders of power and authority, of course, we know is largely men. So to bring the change and the patriarchal norms that keep women in the minimal participation requires that men in the corporate space, men in the public sector, men in civil society begin to also champion these issues. We know that now 80% of boards and power in representation of boards lies in the hands of predominantly men, right? We also know that this dominance is equivalent if you look at academia, if you look at government. And we're seeing, though, that in terms of parliamentary representation, there's some improvements in the South African situation. But we're not doing well. We're doing exceptionally poorly at board representation level. So transformation, I believe, should be led and directly driven by those who are in power, who are able to engender the workplace, who are able to ensure that there's transformation from a racial, from a class, and a gender perspective in all our subsectors. I think also we've got to put minimum targets that must be met. We've got to put more emphasis on dealing with behavior that doesn't transform and those regressive behavior in the labor market and in these spaces. So there has to be collaboration and joint efforts, which we're trying to do as the Commission through our investigative hearings, but also to engage stakeholders. But I think it's important that men should be partners and allies on the quest for transformation. And we've got to have commitment from them, leadership from them, and clear career planning and pathing so that they actually enable clear pathways for women to enter into boards, into decision-making roles, and sponsor women to get into these programs and progress into senior decision-making roles. So it cannot be an informal attempt where we talk about it, but it has to be a deliberate effort and a strategy to change our current work environments. One thing I want to share is that there's actually empirical evidence that points to gender representation and diversity in the workplace increasing output, increasing economic impact. Let me share this stat with you. Gender parity actually increases GDP and economic outcomes, and it's actually a good driver of increasing and improving the bottom line. How so? So there's research that's been done that shows that your return on equity can increase as much as 36% and profitability by 15%, according to the BOSA 2017 census report. This is good for business. Diversity is good for business. So I want to encourage us to understand that this is not just a social imperative, a feminist imperative. It is actually an economic imperative. So in response to seeing what could happen as you increase women in leadership positions, women in decision making, women participating both at your broad management, senior management, and executive management decision, even at boards, they're actually positive impact across the board. There also has to be an acknowledgement across the country, I think, that there is a problem in this respect, so that we can then deal with putting steps in place so that we can deal with the impediments and the challenges that we experience. So we've seen in JSE listed firms, 4.7% of our CEOs are women. I want to repeat that, 4.7% of our CEOs are women. Only 29% are executive managers and 20% are directors. A mere 6.9%, less than 7%, I'll round it to 7%, are chairpersons in the private sector. And this is according to studies that BOSA has done in the census report. So what it's showing you is that the scale of management, decision makers, and proportion of those in the private sector is minuscule. And we really do have a problem in this regard. And we've got to target interventions and work with entities that would train women, that would increase the participation and the representation of women. But there must be clear pathing and career mapping in this regard. And I think boards need to see this as a strategic imperative, because it does definitely improve the bottom line. The profits, the returns on equity, they do go up.
Implementing all these programs consistently is a process that requires the Commission to conduct effective awareness campaigns in provinces and areas where mainstream media does not easily penetrate. This is where outreach, workshops, and public education becomes important.
Public and Education Information Unit is responsible for putting into practice the Commission for Gender Equality's mandate regarding education and advocacy for gender equality. We are responsible for outcome 2, gender equality promoted through information and education to foster public understanding. What do? We focus on localizing sustainable development goals in municipalities through gender mainstreaming sessions. We also do public education outreach, which can be done either face-to-face or using community radio stations. With face-to-face, education officers do situation analysis to determine gender and depth for the possible intervention. Based on the information gathered, they decide which area needs basic gender information or stakeholder engagement activity, which brings together relevant stakeholders to engage with communities. With community radio education outreach, we are able to reach as many people as possible. Then we do gender and development workshops. With gender and development workshops, here we focus on stakeholders and civil society organizations. The objective is to capacitate stakeholders on gender and development so that they can further reach out to their respective beneficiaries. Lastly, we have information and communication initiatives. This is where we do short podcasts and radio interviews on gender equality.
My role is to develop, conduct, and manage public education information programs to foster public understanding of matters pertaining to the promotion of gender equality and establish strategic partnerships with like-minded institutions. Public education information is disseminated in the following ways: localizing sustainable development goals in municipalities through gender mainstreaming sessions. So now how does it work? Gender mainstreaming interventions in local government aims to lobby and influence decision makers. A gender audit is one of the tools used to obtain baseline information that could improve and address issues of inequality. Other strategies involve facilitating a gender responsive identification, analysis, and formulation of policies and programs, establishing strategic relationships with key role players in the community development issues such as SALGA, COGTA, and civil society organizations. The second program is public education outreach. Public education outreach activities raise awareness on gender and human rights education. Here, we forge partnerships with grassroots stakeholders to educate and inform communities about the mandate of the Commission for Gender Equality. We also empower and provide a pathway for people to report cases of gender discrimination. Some of the key gender-related themes covered are gender discrimination, equality and substantive equality, women empowerment, gender-based violence, femicide, sexual violence, sexual reproductive health rights, the termination of pregnancy, combating of human trafficking, and also dealing with hate crimes, as well as awareness on gender identity and sexual orientation. The Gender and Development Training, in short we call it GAD, is a toolkit that is designed to educate and capacitate civil society organizations and in the development sector. Also, the equality principles and practices are there to make sure that they strengthen and capacity the team of gender trainers across provinces and also communities at large. It integrates a participatory approach through education modules designed and also are practical for development and skills training as well. The training initiative seeks to rebuild and strengthen the capacity of a team of gender trainers across provinces who will then educate communities at large. It integrates a participatory approach to gender education through modules that offer practical gender and development training skills. Another thriving program in the Commission is community radio education outreach. I have the privilege of working with local community radio stations to educate and elaborate in detail gender equality issues to the public. Some of the public information covered is informed by research done in the CGE, for example, men and boys issues. We have a report called When Relations Disentangle. The study sought to examine, understand, and assess the factors leading to biological fathers experiencing difficulties in enforcing their rights of contact with their children after separation or divorce. Other themes include transformation and gender diversity, inclusivity, for instance, awareness on sexual harassment and bullying in the workplace. For example, women empowerment programs as well, education on possible contravention of gender rights during the pandemic and where to report. Lastly, strategic engagements with like-minded organizations to promote gender equality is that provincial offices approach stakeholder engagements where they recognize that different projects can require different approaches and that stakeholders' needs can change over time. Therefore, stakeholders here engage different depending on the issues that needs to be addressed during these engagements. So, what do we discuss during these engagements? Well, we hold each other accountable first of all, where we become transparent. We also encourage a good working workforce, and then lastly, we strategize on how to promote gender equality.
As I'm a public education officer from the Mpumalanga province, there's a lot of work that we do, particularly on my department as a public education officer. For an example, we do public education programs where we conduct outreach programs In those programs, we normally partner with various departments, not only departments per se, but also civil society organizations where we conduct relevant issues that are gender related. And in most cases, as you are aware that in Mpumalanga it's mostly rural, 70% of our land is owned by traditional leaders. So obviously we have got a very good working relations with the traditional departments, wherein we have got a memorandum of understanding with the Provincial House of Traditional Leaders in that sense, so that we are able to engage in also the headmen, because most of the time, as we are aware that headmen are the ones that deal with the tribal courts in our areas, and it's important that they should also understand gender issues, how they are supposed to engage themselves. Even if they adjudicate in some of those cases, they should also be aware of the gender element that would always prevail. As we are aware that in most rural areas, gender equality is not taken into consideration. So that's where most of oppression or discrimination happens. I will give an example in terms of people that are of LGBTI community. They find it hard to live in such areas because, traditional leaders, they don't accept them. So those are some of the programs that we engage our traditional leaders to at least make them aware of such people, to say sexual orientation is part of our rights that is entrenched in our constitution, which is chapter 2, Bill of Rights, where it speaks about equality. So those people are as equal as me and you. So we also deal with that. But apart from that, we also conduct other programs. For an example, the gender and development programs. Those programs is where we educate our NGOs, our civil society educations, people who normally go to deep rural areas, or people who go to visit homes where they'll provide services. They should also be aware in terms of what gender entails. What is it that we need to understand? What is it that they need to understand about gender equality? Because remember, gender equality is something that is of constitutional imperative. It is important that we adhere to gender equality as it's enshrined in our constitution. So we always educate them, make them aware, make them understand issues around gender. As of now, we are going to live, and we are living with gender issues. So it is important for them to understand and also to share some of the information that we might have shared with them, because looking at the way in which as the commission works, it's very difficult for one as an officer to also address the whole province. So it is important that we educate other members who deal with issues of gender, so that they can also escalate the information to our communities. Because if we want to reach our mission as a society free from gender oppression, it is important that we also share and educate other members, so that the information can also be cascaded down to our people, ordinary people on the streets. So that's what we do, part of our work. But apart from that, another issue that we always do, which is also very, very critical, we are aware that issues around gender-based violence in the province, those issues are rife. As we are aware that within Mpumalanga there are a lot of cases of GBV. And obviously, as the Commission, we always focus on those cases. As I've mentioned, I'm aware that colleagues are aware of the Gadi incident. There's also another incident that has happened. But not only those incidents. I'm just trying to make an example in terms of such incidents that are happening. And part of those incidents, we have also noted as a province to say the area around Mbombela, particularly the Masoi area, has been a hotspot on issues around gender-based violence. But not only that one, also Forsman around Emalahleni municipality is one of the areas where we have identified it as a hotspot, because a lot of cases of GBV have been reported in those particular areas. And we are aware that as we conduct our work, we also work with our commissioners where they also monitor police stations, and we have discovered that those police stations around those areas, they have recorded high number of gender-based violence. So obviously those are the issues that we always focus on, and we deal with those cases. And at times we go there and monitor those cases to ensure that justice prevails. So that's part of our work that we do. But besides that, we also conduct an outreach program through a radio community stations, wherein we do programs through the radio stations, depending on the type of topics that they want us to deal with. but we have got a lot of stations that we work with. For an example, the SABC radio station, we've got a very good working partnership with them. That is why in most cases, they always call us. Instead of us calling them, they call us to say, can we come and assist in terms of this particular assistance or topic that we want us to discuss with our community. So it's not only those ones, but also our community radio stations that are within the province. We always work handy with them, because at no stage where we would be paying money to them, but obviously they would call us because we've got a very good working relationship with them. That is why we are able to conduct such activity freely and free of charge as we do our work. Then besides those programs that I've just mentioned, we also conduct the program that we call gender mainstreaming. That program basically is a program where we assess how far municipalities have gone in terms of implementing gender equality in their programs. Remember, as I've mentioned, gender equality is constitutional, so we need to make sure that there is equality in every aspect of government. So what we do there, we always evaluate whether there is gender equality, and when we do those evaluations, we require municipality to provide us with information that we will be able to detect whether there is equality in terms of programs, in terms of benefits that the municipalities is issuing to their communities, whether those benefits were equally distributed between men and women, whether those programs that the municipality have dished out, beneficiaries were both men and women. So those are some of the issues that we do. And as we do our gender mainstreaming, we then look at such issues, including the workforce, to say this municipality is full of males as compared to females. So that's what we also do. And then we then inform or we assist or make recommendations to the municipality to say, come the following financial year, you need to make sure that in your equity employment plan, you also include those that are vulnerable, those groups that have not yet been receiving equal treatment, your women, your LGBTI community, people with disabilities, so that at least the quota that has been mentioned by government we are able to meet those type of quotas.
So what I actually do in the Commission for Gender Equality is I'm an education officer in the Free State Province. So being an education officer requires me to implement public education and outreach interventions. It requires of me to engage with stakeholders within the province, basically looking at what are the trends, the gender trends, what are the gender discrimination matters that we are having within the province. So it is our stakeholder relations that assists us in being able to acquire this information. Furthermore, as an education officer, what I'm required to do is to implement what we call gender mainstreaming. With regard to gender mainstreaming, as public education officers, we implement these interventions in public and private institutions. Particularly, we have been doing our work with municipalities. So the purpose of these interventions is to ensure and to monitor, but also to educate on issues of transformation within institutions. It is within our mandate to ensure that institutions adhere and are responsive to issues of gender within their institutions in terms of their policies, in terms of employment equity, and in terms of actually looking at the general gender atmosphere, respect for gender, and ensuring that there is non-discrimination within institutions. Furthermore, as education officers, we implement what we call gender and development training workshops. These are workshops that we conduct with public organizations, private institutions, as well as civil society organizations. It is our aim with these interventions that these stakeholders are capacitated on issues of gender, human rights, and gender transformation within their institutions and within the society at large. Once we have given them the capacity and understanding on the mandate of the Commission for Gender Equality, they are then enabled to roll out similar interventions with their constituencies, and furthermore, they are then able to refer cases within the Commission for Gender Equality that are within our mandate. When we conduct our public education outreaches in the Free State Province, we ensure that we have maximum coverage of the province. That is including that we move into all the districts of the province. That is the Mangaung Metro Municipality, the Thabo Mofutsanyane District Municipality, the Lejoliputsa District Municipality, as well as the Qarib District Municipalities. When we go into these communities to do our outreach programs, we consult with stakeholders on the ground. This is when we do our situational analysis to ensure that when we reach the community, we address the issues that are at the heart of the community. Most of the challenges that we have found in the Free State Province is that there is a high number of gender-based violence, domestic violence, but mostly the discrimination and hate crimes against LGBTI persons who have not been accepted into the community at large. During our public outreach education interventions, we partner with various institutions such as the South African Police Services, the Department of Social Development, Department of Health, the National Prosecuting Authority, Legal Aid South Africa, and various other institutions, including civil society organizations. In understanding that gender-based violence has been rife in the country at large, within the Free State Province, we have various hotspots that have been declared as GBV rife. And as the Commission for Gender Equality in the Free State, we have been focusing on these hotspots. That is the Bloomspruit hotspot, which is in Mangaung Metro, and Velcom, which is in the Lejoliputswa district. These areas have had high number of cases that have been reported to the SAPS that are cases of domestic violence, cases of human trafficking, and cases of rape. We have been rolling out public education interventions in these areas to educate the community, particularly on how do they go and access their justice, to ensure that cases of gender-based violence are reported to relevant institutions, and when submitted, they are prosecuted successfully.
I am responsible for public education and information within the Commission for Gender Equality in the Eastern Cape. We've got quite a number of programs that we roll out to communities, private sector, government departments, including local municipalities. One of the programs which I find key to CGE work is the outreach, where us as public education, we have a duty to go to communities, engage community leaders. These will be your traditional leaders, your ward councillors, your ward committees, including at times school principals and church leaders. We approach them with a view to get a buy-in from them so that we are known, so that when community members ask who are these, why are they here, the community leaders could be in a position to vouch for us and say they know us, and we have their permission and blessings to be a part of the community. So we share information with the community around the Chapter 9 institution work. As we all know that we have about 6 Chapter 9 institutions that are meant to protect and promote human rights within the country. The CGE's work is a little bit different from others, so we need to bring those differences to community members. Some people, especially in the Eastern Cape, where levels of education are low, people believe in their traditions, in their culture, people believe and follow their religion. There could be things that clash between their own values and beliefs against the Bill of Rights, the rights as enshrined in the Chapter 2 of the Constitution. So where that is occurring, or where that has a potential to occur, we explain to the community members that everybody has a right to practice their religion and their culture. However, their religion and their culture should not be in conflict with the provisions of the Constitution, the Chapter 2 of the Constitution. Besides that, we also accept or encourage community members to bring to us or to our attention the complaints that they may have when they feel that their rights have been infringed or they have been discriminated against on the basis of gender, for instance, gender identity, sexual orientation, pregnancy, and a whole lot of other prohibited rights as listed in the Equality Act. When complaints are investigated by our legal officers, the legal officers would then report to the complainant, and they would further report perhaps to the affected parties or the persons or people or companies that discriminated against the complainant. The other program that we have as provinces is your Gender in Development. Gender in Development targets your civil society organizations. It could also include community development workers from the Department of Corporate Governance and Traditional Affairs. It could also work with anybody who is in the field of human rights. The purpose of the gender and development training is to ensure that when people go around doing their own work as per their own mandates, they are able to, include gender equality in their own programs. This is a very powerful program. Wherever we go and participate on the same with stakeholders or participants, they really appreciate the content that they gained from the training itself. Then we have again the gender mainstreaming program, which at this point we work with local municipalities. The objective of gender mainstreaming is to ensure that the local municipalities include gender equality in their planning, in their implementation, in programs, in monitoring and in evaluation of their work. Given that the local municipalities have a duty to render services to communities, this could be water, this could be improved sanitation, this could be poverty alleviation. So when they go about doing that, we want them to, for instance, disaggregate the gender, disaggregate the numbers in terms of gender. For instance, it is not enough to say that the local municipalities has given 50 people, free paraffin or free electricity. We want to know how many men benefited and how many women. That's what we say when we talk about gender disaggregation. The other program that we conduct often will be your radio talks with community radio stations. Wherever you go, for instance, in Tanzania, you have your Tanzania FM, Alfred Nzo community radio in Mount Elif, Vukani community radio in Cala, Nkonjane in Alwa North, and Flagstaff. So those are some of the local radio stations that provide the Commission for Gender Equality with time or airtime so that we can engage communities in the language that they understand. For instance, if we talk to Alfred Nzo District Municipality or Alfred Nzo Community Radio, we would use the language that is used in the particular area. Obviously, the topics that we would cover, there would be your topics around maybe ukutwala or what we call early or forced marriages. We cover issues of maintenance. We cover issues of gender-based violence. We also explain gender equality and what it is, because some people feel that if the minute we talk about gender equality, you are trying to promote rights of women at the expense of the rights of men, but that is not the case. The Constitution is clear. It does not talk about men or women when it talks about right, but it talks about citizens or persons. So the rights as enshrined or listed in the Chapter 2 of the Constitution are not discriminatory on the basis of gender. Besides the radio stations that we conduct, we also engage our stakeholders. We would invite our stakeholders to our offices so that they know our plans for a particular year. For instance, if there is any change in terms of the contacts, in terms of the programs, in terms of everything that is happening with the CGE, we wish that such information should be received by our stakeholders. What we also do, and we encourage people to do in their communities, is for them to invite us. If you feel that there is a trend in your community where people get raped and these cases are not attended to as urgently as we would want to, if people are discriminated against on the basis of gender identity or sexual orientation, people can invite CGE. Where we cannot tackle topics of gender equality on our own or on our own alone, we do invite our partners who are experts in such fields so that they can work with us in empowering the communities.
These programs are an integral part of the CGE mandate and are also mentioned prominently in the amended CGE Act of 1996. The CGE coordinates these community outreach and public education campaigns from its 9 provincial offices, with provincial managers playing a leading role in the whole community engagement value chain.
The CGE in Limpopo has a very important role in promoting gender equality in the province.
So we work with both private and public sector. And a lot of work that we do concerns gender mainstreaming, concerns a lot of work around education, and it concerns a lot of work around investigating complaints. So in terms of our monitoring role, we will look at issues around HOD principles, we'll look at issues around gender mainstreaming in both public and private sector, and we look at gender transformation in general. In terms of evaluation, then we will look at issues around policy. So there are policy directives that are supposed to be there in all institutions to ensure that there is gender equality and gender mainstreaming. So we'll look at issues around sexual harassment, issues around skills development, issues around gender equality in general. And then we do a lot of work around education. One of the important roles of the Commission is to educate our communities around human rights and gender equality. So we do a lot of education, especially at community level, in order to raise consciousness about gender equality and human rights. And then from those education initiatives, that's where we get a lot of complaints, gender discrimination complaints. So in Limpopo, we look at issues around maintenance, we look at issues around customary marriages, and then we look at issues around gender-based violence, which is very rife in the province, especially around the district of Vembe and Mupani, where we get a lot of cases around rape and sexual offenses. So that is the work that we do. And on an advisory role of the Commission, we work with the government and private institutions on ensuring that there is gender responsive planning and budgeting. So we ensure that gender perspectives are embedded in planning and development. Currently, we are working with the provincial government on ensuring that the Limpopo Growth and Development Strategy is gender mainstream and that there is gender imperatives within the plan so that everyone can be included. Because our role is to ensure that there is inclusive planning, inclusive development, and to ensure that planning is done through a human rights perspective and prism, and ensuring that the mantra of the SDGs continues, which is leave no one behind. The greatest achievement for us as a commission is to ensure that there is knowledge around gender equality in the province. As you know from our historical legacy, there is a lot of lack of knowledge around human rights because democracy is a fairly new concept to the African context, so there is a need for education. So we look at issues around gendered legislation. You know what they say, ignorance of the law is not an excuse. So we ensure that we educate our communities on their rights. So we look at issues around the Maintenance Act, we look at issues around Domestic Violence Act, Sexual Offences Act. We look at issues around all this gendered legislation to ensure that our communities know their rights. Because if our communities know their rights, they'll be able to recognize if their rights are infringed, and they'll be able to know where to report these rights. Because the Commission for Gender Equality is the linkage between the people and the government. It's put in place to ensure that it protects the right of the people, and it calls duty bearers, which is our government and the state, to task on issues pertaining to human rights and gender equality. So we work with communities at different levels, and there are different stakeholders that we involve because we need to ensure that we leverage on their reach in the community. So we work with legal advice centers, we work with VEP centers, we work with municipalities, because as the Commission, we don't have constituencies. So we totally and solely rely on different institutions to ensure that we expand our reach within the community. And we do work with institutions of higher learning on education programs as well, and also on issues of research, because they have an important role of ensuring that there is knowledge production. So our role as the Commission is to ensure that this knowledge production includes issues of human rights and includes issues of gender equality.
As the Gauteng Provincial Manager, I'm always looking for ways, together with my team, to engage with stakeholders within the provincial government, private sector, and civil society organizations. This is for the purpose of finding ways of collaborating to deliver advocacy education concerning crimes against women, men, persons with disabilities, sexual minorities, and children. This is realized by coordinating and facilitating gender mainstreaming workshops, gender and development trainings, and stakeholder engagements with like-minded institutions to develop and upskill people who work in the gender sector. We also drive gender-related content through educational campaigns on local community radio stations to reach out to residents in the different parts of the province. Most importantly, we receive and manage gender-related complaints to help victims of gender-related crimes to enhance access to justice when they feel that the criminal justice system is delayed or not helping them.
Persons with disabilities are also a focal point for the Commission. Some studies have found that persons with disabilities face numerous types of barriers that hinder their equal participation in communities. Communication barriers may limit access to information. Physical barriers may prohibit access to buildings. And in some countries, communities may believe that persons with psychosocial disabilities are possessed or victims of witchcraft.
Girls and women with disabilities are affected by, one, the scenario at home, the scenario at the community level, the scenario at work, and at places of education, where you find that most of the time, those people who are born with a disability, their families are almost not prepared, because it's very rare when you are told that your child is going to have a disability. It always comes as a surprise to the mother at the labor ward. And then later on in life, when you go to school, you find that at school itself, it becomes difficult when you're not taken straight away to the school where you've got a child with disabilities, to the special schools. But when you go to a mainstream school, you have always to assert yourself and achieve better. At the workplace, you have to look for reasonable accommodation, and people don't understand why you must be accommodated reasonably. And reasonable accommodation is where people think maybe you are favored, but they don't take it as your right to be accommodated reasonably. The Gender Commission has come out outrightly because we've got a department that deals with women, youth, and persons with disabilities. The Gender Commission is outright going to incapacitate women and girl children. We've got a program in the Gender Commission of looking after the girls in the primary schools. We have all been overwhelmed as South Africans, where we find that there is pregnancy for children as early as 11 years. So we've got a program where we go out as the Gender Commission and equip young women with their reproductive health. We go out to them to give them confidence that as a little girl, you need to equip yourself and be a high achiever. So as the Gender Commission, we're going all out to say, even if you're getting pregnant at an earlier age, you don't have to leave school. Let the child grow and you go back to school. And we're saying to young women or to the women fraternity, education is key. Let's get educated. Let's not be deprived of our right of going to school and be better women. So the Gender Commission is out and out to say education is key to people, and we go out and equip with the gender, where we find that we're working with economical development, where we're saying to young women, you can equip yourself economically, even if you have to be an entrepreneur. We're going to support you and give you courage that we're looking forward to young entrepreneurs as women. We've seen women in music. We've seen women acting. We've seen women being economists. That is the issue where the Gender Commission says, let's equip women and the girl child. There is the issue of disability. Now everybody understands that there is equity for the gender and disabilities, where we're saying the sky is the limit, and we've got the bill that we're working on. Specifically, let me speak of women with albinism. Most of the time we've been seeing women with albinism being hunted, where males used to believe that if they have a sexual intercourse with us, their HIV status will be cured, where they find that how does it feel to have an intercourse with a person with albinism. But we've seen women, specifically with albinism, who have climbed the ladder of success, where they are working very, very, very much. And then we're speaking of deaf and women with a blindness. Those women have gone to school, they are at the universities, and the United Nations have proven that South Africa is also a signatory on the bill of working with people with disabilities, where we are saying, let us be given the same equal rights like any other person in the country.
In addition to public education initiatives and awareness campaigns, the CGE Act also mandates the Commission to conduct research work on a variety of important issues within the gender space.
The importance of research under the CGE mandate is to generate knowledge on nuanced gendered ills that are affecting and impeding gender transformation in the country. And the principle of impartiality of the CGE enables for Commission to undertake empirical research in compliance with the qualitative research ethical principles that enable for the revealing of the hidden critical gendered issues within the South African society. And those issues are compressed as factors that hinder a promotion of gender equality in the country. The CGE research is mostly centered on monitoring and evaluation on the implementation of the regulatory frameworks, the domestic and international ones, that guide the promotion of gender equality in the country, to ensure that South Africa is compliant with the international standards. So CGE monitors compliance by the duty bearers on the implementation of those international instruments, such as CEDAW, such as the Maputo Protocol, as well as the Sustainable Development Goals. And the Commission also conducts empirical research that enables for the revealing of those gendered issues that hinder gender transformation in the country. The CGE also provides policy recommendations to remedy those hindering social ills. And some of those studies that we have conducted are illegal initiation schools in South Africa, which focus on factors leading to young men dying in initiation schools. And the other one was When Relations Disentangle, which is on broken relationships between parents affecting now access to children. The CGE research agenda also includes the following thematic areas. Firstly, women's economic empowerment in South Africa, which focuses on women's access to economic resources and economic opportunities. Secondly, implementation of the National Strategic Plan on Gender-Based Violence and Femicide, as well as the establishment of the national structure on GBV, focusing on how far the country is in terms of implementing the GBVF National Strategic Plan and establishing the GBVF national structure. Lastly, CGE also focuses on sexual and reproductive health rights, which focus on women's access to their sexual and reproductive health rights.
The education initiatives are not only targeted at community members, but also at leadership in local government. Gender equality should be implemented in all spheres of life, particularly also in the workplace. Therefore, gender mainstreaming is of the utmost importance. Commissioner Dibiela Motupi elaborates on this.
Gender mainstreaming is a process of integrating gender equality into policies, legislations, plans and strategies, both in government and the private sector. And it also applies to all levels within structures, that being the governance structures and the technical structures. And it assists, I would say it's a vehicle that takes us to gender equality. We implement it or rather put it into place by ensuring that whatever plans there are, whether it be in government or the private sector, take into consideration equality between men and women. We whether it's planning, and I would make an example with local government, whether it's planning in terms of local government, their consultation with communities in terms of their IDPs, there is a need for them to look into the times at which they call meetings, the durations of the meetings, and the venues for the meetings. Are they within a reachable space for women? The duration, how long they take, is it feasible for women to be in those meetings, and also look after their triple responsibilities, and also where these meetings are held, how safe are they? Sometimes meetings are convened and it's late in the evening and women are unable to attend or even participate because they fear for their own safety. And also even the budgeting. How is the budgeting allocated in terms of ensuring that it brings about gender equality within a municipality? I said I would make an example with a municipality. In terms of roads, where do you build roads? What access do the roads give to women? Do you have roads leading to clinics, to police stations, to schools? Do you have roads leading to where they can get transport to work? And also where you build even public service centers, are they accessible to women? Do they not pose any danger to women? And also as they make their own plans, as municipalities or even government interacting with with government departments on issues relating to municipal plans, are they raising issues that affect women, ensuring that women are also brought on par? And also in terms of economy, where are women placed? At the moment, women are mostly in the informal sector of the economy. What is it that is being done to ensure that they are being brought into the mainstream economy? And by doing that, identifying programs for training for women, programs for funding, that's gender mainstreaming, because you are ensuring that they are on an equal footing with male counterparts. We know that women have not been accessing funding in the past, and at the moment they are still not accessing funding because they do not have capital, and sometimes most of them come from areas which are called debt capital. So they can't use even their houses to access capital. They do not have experience in business. So training them, those are the interventions of gender mainstreaming in ensuring that they also participate. We know that in terms of politics, of course, the strides have been made. Women can vote. They can also be elected into positions or as public representatives, and that in itself is part of gender mainstreaming, ensuring that there is equality within the society. And it would also affect the manner in which we do our research, the manner in which we report, because the data that we collect and how we report on the data that we collect should reflect the different genders. how each issue or aspect affects both men and women, how they benefit even from programs of both the government and the private sector. That is how the interventions that we come up with in ensuring that there is gender equality, which would then be called gender mainstreaming, because you make sure that in each aspect of life, in each program, in each plan, in each legislation, you apply a gender lens to ensure that there is equality. Some of the international treaties and conventions which South Africa has ratified, and I would make an example with CEDAW, which seeks for ensuring that there is equality, which seeks to ensure that there is elimination of all forms of discrimination against women. They make reference to ensuring that there is women's economic empowerment, women become active in political life, that women access education. They also speak to empowerment of women in general, in order to ensure that there is equality. You would need to make sure that women are represented in all forms of life. Hence, there are these treaties which speaks to issues of eliminating discrimination and inequality, in particular against women, ensuring that women are also brought on par with their male counterpart. There is equality even in terms of accessing jobs, in terms of the salaries that they earn once they are employed. Because remember, employment also contributes to being active in the economy, and they are being active in terms of decision making in politics, voting, and also being elected into power also empowers them. So this convention covers those issues, and it relates also to gender mainstreaming, because we speak of ensuring that women are empowered and women are brought on par with their male counterparts, such that there is gender equality. As CGE, the role that we play in terms of on the international conventions is playing oversight and monitoring in ensuring that government adheres to the treaties that they've ratified, in terms of ensuring that government implements the policies that they've come up with that goes in line with the treaties and conventions, as well as the policies. Hence, we have our investigative hearings, through which we seek to find out as to how far government and the private sector have moved in ensuring that there is gender equality through interventions informed by gender mainstreaming. Well, gender mainstreaming in essence is about ensuring that there is equality amongst men and women, equality within the society where they live, in terms of how women are treated by the society, dealing with the gender stereotypes, the gender roles which the society gives to both men and women. It deals with ensuring that women participate in the economy, in the mainstream economy, not just the economy, in the mainstream economy. It deals with ensuring that they participate in the political life, in education, in plans and strategies. In essence, it brings about interventions in ensuring that there is gender equality within the public and private sector, within all walks of life, such that we have an equal society where women are not discriminated, or even men are not discriminated, where they are all seen as equal, whether it's at work, whether it's within the economy, whether it's through planning and strategy being applied, as well as legislations.
The head office of the Commission is an administrative hub where most of the Secretariat operates from. A national organization that has offices in 9 provinces requires the coordination of employees, management of staff, retention of talent, employee wellness and recruitment. The Human Resources Department is the center of this.
In order to fulfill the CGE mandate, the employees in the institution have to reach communities in different regions of our provinces and also to attend to legal complaints and general inquiries from the public. In addition, they must engage with both public and private sectors, international bodies, and NGOs. We have commissioners who provide strategic guidance to the work of the CGE. We also have management team that always supports the work of the CEO and our internal departments. As the HR manager, my roles and responsibilities are HR administration, recruitment and selection, training and development, performance management, employee wellness, HR policy implementation and reviews, payroll processing and leave management, occupational health and safety, employee relations, and HR risk management. The HR department is a very important unit in the CGE. Our mandate includes creating a conducive environment in which the CGE employees can work and achieve their targets, which are contained in the annual performance plan. HR also have to ensure that there is compliance to HR policies and procedures, as well as the legislative requirements. The CGE have a very experienced workforce with professionals who specialize in their different lines of work. The main objective of the HR department is to attract talent and ensure that we recruit and retain more skills that enable the organization to achieve its vision and mission. Training and development plays an important role at the CGE because it enhances knowledge through skills, development, and training. This would encourage employees to improve and perform at a higher level than the previous year. So as the HR department, it is our aim to help employees to perform at a higher level in their workspace. The HR department assists management and employees with monitoring and evaluating performance. Hence, when the employees succeed in their line of work, it also benefits the organization. Employee wellness is also very significant as it takes care of employees' mental health and other work-related challenges. Taking care of employees is an ongoing process that requires us to accommodate the needs of our staff members. As a national organization, we have offices in all 9 provinces. That means our staff composition is broad in terms of culture, background, career streams, education, skills, and expertise. The aim of the CGE is to be the employer of choice and attract the best talent and skills to the organization, mixing older individuals with youth, and also maintaining a good gender balance in our staff composition. It is our role as HR to harness all this for greater benefits of the organization. As the HR manager, I'm very proud of the efforts of the CGE commissioners, management, and all the employees, as they always ensure that they reach the targets set out in the performance plan to achieve the CGE mandate.
The Commission has offices in all 9 provinces. However, it is difficult to reach all citizens in the country through its education outreach programs. This is the reason the CGE values its stakeholders, as officials work with like-minded institutions to propel the object of the Commission. The media is one of these stakeholders and is central to the work of the Commission, assisting to carry the message to all corners of the country.
We work with the media. We have got a wonderful, excellent relationship with Government Communication Information System, whereby we also get piggyback on some of the interviews that are being done by other departments like Department of Justice and Constitutional Development, where they've got the paid money and the call upon the Commission for Gender Equality. It is very critical because we cannot reach the length and the breadth of every corner of South Africa. Some areas are not very driver friendly, and we use community radio station mostly because the community radio stations are available in various languages in all areas of the country. People are able to get all of us, our education officers on the ground, our illegal officers on the ground, and it helps on the mainstream media because the gender narrative and discourse is supposed to be championed by the Commission for Gender Equality. What we need to do is the consistency in terms of the messaging that we give out there for people to get to understand in detail who the Gender Commission is. We have seen by the calls that we receive every interview, it's impactful that is there, and we don't take this for granted. We are appreciative of the airtime that we receive. We use television. We have seen the numbers of television going. We're using these channels to talk about our thematic areas that also help us to endear us to society, to say, we'll call the Gender Commission. And the good thing, because of the work that we do, you'll find that people, even before they go to report the case to the police, they come to the Commission for Gender Equality to notify us so that we can monitor that case. That is because of the work that has got a very strong impact on the media. Media is so central to our work. We do this social media, and we look at the attraction thereof. We look at every aspect, whether it's YouTube, Facebook, or Twitter. We have seen people, how they interact with us, and that's where we want to get all layers of our society. We don't need to look only at the people on the grassroots who are saying that's where gender-based violence is happening, that's where issues of women. The impact is supposed to be felt throughout in every channel of communication that is there. And we're glad that, we are also championing the work of the Commission by having articles written on our work, that, every Thursday or Friday we issue a newsletter, news flash, whereby people also interact with us. Journalists call on us. We put this on our statuses on Twitter, on WhatsApp channel, WhatsApp, and it gains attraction out there. So media cannot be the role of media on our work cannot be downplayed. Some of the things that we do the interviews. It's where media gets to pull out the statements that we have issued. It could be last year or the other years, and also it helps us when we have got hearings, when we have got reports. We do media briefings. We call upon the media. I will just even say give an example of 2 reports that we issued: the state of shelter in South Africa, and also the issues of forced sterilization. The impact is so massive because of the media, and we say thank you to the media houses that even today, 2 years down the line, 3 years down the line, they're still carrying the message from the Commission for Gender Equality, because that on its own has got a very ripple effect in society. And for the redress, for the implementers to do so, they constantly have to work with the Commission for Gender Equality, and we're grateful. We want to work with people, and the media is helping us to reach the length and the breadth of the country. Also, the marketing, branding, and other things that we do, it's also helped by the media, that taking our stories up there and ensuring that we always available for media to engage with us. When we receive interview requests, we don't take for granted, because we know that we're going to change life out there. We also work with using the media and other agencies of the state and others. We also do a lot of capacity building, and now one of the flagship work that we'll be doing, men and boys, we are going to rely on the media to take the message out there. Remember, the president of the country, President Honorable Ramaphosa, said GBV and femicide are a second pandemic in the country after coronavirus. What we want to do, we want to use the same media in order for us to talk to men, not to trash them, not to demonize them, but to work with men to say, what is it that men can do in society, ensure that we arrest the scourge of gender-based violence, and all that can be done with the media being on our side. That's why we want to be the friend of the media. Not that they cannot critique us. We are open to criticism, but we need them more than ever, because we have to reach to every soul in this country with the limited budget that we have. There are a lot of things that we do. The issues of inheritance, the media is interested. The issues of widowhood, the media is interested. The issues of transformation in the public sector, the media is interested, and we hold those people to account. The buzzword for us at the Commission for Gender Equality, we want to hold people accountable as much as the media times hold us accountable. So it has been a joy working with the media insofar as cascading the work of the Commission for Gender Equality. And also, we have done an excellent work insofar as not only from the communications point of view, but also building capacity for education legal officers. Our commissioners are also on the ground, they're ready. We prepare them notes when they go to the mainstream media to engage with them and give the best of the CGE for society to see that this institution that has got a broad mandate, but it's there for its citizen, and we will hope and going forward and pray that the media will give us that space with the limited budget that we have in our disposal.
The Commission for Gender Equality intervenes in cases relating to the violation of gender rights. To report on gender-based violence, contact the CGE on this toll-free number 0800 007 709. You can lodge complaints by emailing on info@cge.org.za or by visiting the website www.cge.org.za for more ways on how you can lodge a complaint. The website www.cge.org.za also has all the officers' contact details. You can also follow the Commission on different social media platforms such as Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, and SoundCloud.